Journey to one of the most majestic places on Earth. Discover Beijing, a city rich in history, on grounds where emperors once stood. From the Forbidden City to the Temple of Heaven, explore a land of rich traditions, beautiful landscapes, and revered culture. Now, enjoy 72-hour visa-free transit and make your next vacation unforgettable. Discover Beijing 2. Walk in the footsteps of emperors. Saturday, February 28th at 7:30 on ABC7.
Nearly 7,000 miles from New York sits an ancient city 14 times bigger. Steeped in mystery and a rich historical culture that spans 30 centuries.
Beijing has a long history and rich culture. It is also a modern city. If I have to use one word to describe Beijing, it would be inclusive.
Now thriving with modernity and growth, China's capital for the last 739 years, Beijing has evolved around the imperial culture it has always embodied. A grand history haunts these decorated walls of stone, bustling streets and peaceful gardens, where thousands flock to take a step back in time and experience history. From the foundation of the Forbidden City to the Chinese people who continue to respect and practice ancient traditions today, this is Beijing.
Beijing is an authentic imperial city. In Beijing, you can find all the symbols and relics that represent Chinese culture. I think every visitor who comes to Beijing wants to experience a very wonderful and interesting cultural trip.
The most iconic symbol of China's imperial culture spans over 1.6 million square feet in the absolute center of Beijing. The Forbidden City, aptly named because no one could enter it without the emperor's special permission, was ordered to be built in 1406 under the reign of Emperor Chengzu during the Ming Dynasty. It's said that over the next 14 years, at least 1 million laborers and artisans built the nearly 1,000 ornate buildings that comprise the palace. Today, the Forbidden City remains the largest palace in the world. Its floor space more than double the size of France's Versailles, and arguably the most well-preserved example of China's imperial past.
24 emperors from the Ming and Qing dynasties lived here. A lot of major historical events happened here. Therefore, it is also an important representation of the Chinese culture.
Construction of the Forbidden City is an impressive feat in and of itself. Imagine moving these stones, some weighing over 500,000 pounds.
The Forbidden City is mystical. There is a dimension to it that is beyond our imagination. We should give it time. We should understand the nuances of the various aspects of how they built a temple. There's so much of interest there, and it's still meaningful to this day.
Situated in the absolute center of Beijing, the palace was built to align with the north-south meridian, the central axis of China's capital then and now.
The Forbidden City is divided into two parts, the outer court and the inner court. The outer court mainly serves as a place for political life, such as for major political ceremonies and celebrations, while the inner court mainly serves as a residence of the emperor and the empress.
Inside, the inner Golden Water River flows in the shape of a serpent underneath 5 bridges. From atop the bridges, a view of the palace's most impressive gate can be witnessed, the Gate of Supreme Harmony. 2 statuesque bronze lions, a symbol of imperial power, are standing guard. It was here that imperial honor guards paraded before grand ceremonies like the emperor's wedding and his ascension to the throne. While the Hall of Supreme Harmony is the most important structure in the outer court, the Palace of Heavenly Purity is its near equivalent in the inner court. It's where the emperor lived his daily life and slept in a different room each night to evade enemies. Visiting the Forbidden City is a technicolor treat of architectural and historic splendor, but no trip is complete without witnessing the Nine-Dragon Wall. The newest addition to the Imperial Palace, the wall was built in 1733 and is an example of a tradition many Chinese still practice today. It's believed that a screen in front of the door will deter ghosts and spirits from entering the house.
The Forbidden City is one of the great sights of the world. Besides being a palace like Versailles, it's also like the Louvre. It's a palace filled with art, and there are 5 museums.
Filled with mesmerizing artifacts used by imperial families, the Palace Museum houses extensive collections of ceramics, paintings, bronzeware, and jade. Visitors to the Palace Museum will be hard-pressed to view all of the nearly 2 million pieces on display in just one day. But witnessing such unique items as the porcelain pillow, crafted in the shape of a boy and dating back to the Song Dynasty in the 10th century, gives a glimpse of imperial life in ancient times. Every piece in the Palace Museum appropriately considered a national treasure, taking a page from centuries of history to understand China's spectacular imperial past. Coming up, a walk through the Emperor's playgrounds, Beijing's impressive imperial gardens. The architecture of China's ancient times was built with the goal of being in harmony with nature, an idea from the Chinese philosophical system of feng shui. The practice of feng shui is beautifully portrayed at the popular tourist attractions of the Summer Palace, Beihai Park, and the Ming Tombs.
The Forbidden City is located in the center of Beijing, and then Beihai, and actually even the Summer Palace, is of water energy, located more in the wealth and power corner.
Situated 9 miles northwest from the center of Beijing, the 742-acre park occupies the city's so-called wealth and prosperity corner, according to the ancient Chinese tradition of feng shui. Built in 1750, the Summer Palace is the largest and most well-preserved royal park in China. Its sprawling landscape, including Longevity Hill and Kunming Lake, made a spectacular summer resort, fit for the royal family to rest and entertain guests in an outdoor splendor.
The emperors liked music. They loved to be entertained, and they had troops, musicians, playing in what looked like a temple, and the buildings around were the audience.
Over 300 temples and pavilions within the park were all built with nature in mind, and there's a story behind every spot.
What's so spectacular about this lake is it's man-made. And when they dug out the lake, they took the dirt and they built the Longevity Hill on the other side. But one of the things about the whole Summer Palace, it's meant to represent different places in the emperor's kingdom.
The eastern edge of Kunming Lake is linked to the Dragon King Temple on Nanhu Island by a 500-foot-long bridge with a magnificent 17 arches. Nanhu Island was built to symbolize a mythical fairyland where an elixir of immortality was believed to exist. The 17-arch bridge is decorated by over 500 stone lions on either side, and Chinese numerology dictated the number of arches for the bridge. Nothing was chosen randomly when it came to building the finest royal garden for the country's supreme power. This life-size bronze ox overlooks Kunming Lake. As far back as the Tang Dynasty, 618 AD, it became customary to line waterways with oxen, a practice tied to a belief they would prevent flood. And no imperial park would be complete without dragons. Found in all sizes throughout the Summer Palace, they are symbols of China's emperor, as well as power, strength, and good luck. The Summer Palace isn't the only piece of outdoor splendor emperors played in. Beihai Park, built and rebuilt over several dynasties, is the oldest imperial garden in China.
Be it the Summer Palace or Beihai, one of the great things about Beijing in general is the green space, plants, trees. It's a wonderful experience.
And no imperial park is complete without a 9-dragon screen. This one, the most grand, at nearly 90 feet long, 22 feet high, and 5 feet thick. Visitors call this 200-year-old wall a masterpiece because of its still impressive condition and bright colors, a full demonstration of the ancient Chinese artisan's skill. It's fair to say the places emperors lived in and ruled from are some of the most magnificent structures ever made, and such a standard was not forsaken even after their deaths.
Every civilization celebrates the dead a different way. The British have Westminster Abbey. The Egyptians have the West Bank tombs, and of course the pyramids. The Ming tombs are kind of like all of them put together.
230 years in the making, the Ming tombs were built over 30,000 acres, a grand cemetery where 13 emperors of the Ming dynasty were laid to rest.
What I love particularly is the main gate. The main gate is mostly ceramic masonry with a very tiny wooden pavilion on top. And when you approach it, you're so small by the archway that you get a feeling of monumentality. It's like in Paris going through the arch in the Arc de Triomphe. It's that grand feeling, so you know you're somewhere special.
Visitors to the Ming tombs today can witness the elaborate ceremonies once performed by emperors in honor of their imperial ancestors. The mausoleums start with the Changling tomb of the Ming dynasty's first emperor and fan out down the main path known as Sacred Way, considered the road leading to heaven. Stone sculptures along the path were seen as representative of the emperor's dignity and are meant to signify their supreme power, even after death. The Ming Tomb Park is so large, one could never visit each mausoleum in one day, and only a handful of tombs are open today. But Dingling Tomb is one not to miss. It's the final resting place for Emperor Zhu Yijun and his 2 empresses. The underground palace is the only tomb of the 13 unearthed today.
Like the Egyptians, there are chambers underground, usually with a barrel vault, and they're almost futuristic. Very simple, not much carving, and you get a feeling of monumentality there.
Archaeologists uncovered over 3,000 pieces of cultural relics in this tomb, all on display today, including the gold imperial crowns, signifying the exuberance of imperial life. A walk down Sacred Way, through the Summer Palace or Beihai Park, is a walk back in time in which tourists can imagine a bygone era and get a glimpse of the grandeur reserved only for ancient China's most respected rulers. Coming up, a journey through China's imperial past isn't complete without a tour of the emperor's magnificent temples. Like the complex and rich culture of the Chinese people, formed over centuries, China's architectural style of its most treasured heritage sites has been influenced by hundreds of years of history. The Temple of Heaven complex is one such example.
The Chinese culture, I see it encapsulated in the Temple of Heaven. I think the architecture is magnificent. There's so much meaning to the way it was built. It's just superb.
Constructed at the same time as the Forbidden City, under the Ming Emperor Yongle, the Temple of Heaven is nearly 6 centuries old and occupies over 660 acres. It's situated on the same north-south meridian of Beijing, and this was no accident.
It's feng shui. And north of the Temple of Heaven is Coal Hill, the Forbidden City, and in a straight line south of the Forbidden City is the Temple of Heaven. The Temple of Heaven is not just one building, it's a complex. The ancient Chinese believed that heaven was round and earth was square. So when you see the Temple of Heaven, you'll see a tall, round building, and it's on a square base. It's heaven over earth.
Larger than the Forbidden City itself, the complex comprises the religious buildings where emperors worshipped the heavens in spectacular ceremonies.
The emperor and his court would go down from the Forbidden City in a straight line right down to the Temple of Heaven, and he would thank the gods for the harvest and also bless the heavens and the gods to make sure there's enough food, harvest, prosperity, and peace in his kingdom.
This temple, the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests, was where the emperors customarily held a ritual every year in the winter solstice to pray for a good crop. Failing to do so was believed to bring bad luck to the country. Built entirely out of wood without any nails, the building is an architectural relic of the past. Nothing is without symbolic meaning.
And one of the things that separates the Temple of Heaven, that you know you're in heaven in Beijing and nowhere else, is by the color of the tiles on the roof. They're blue, which is signifying the sky, which is on the way to heaven.
Because the emperor was believed to be appointed by a supreme god to rule his people, he was the earthly connection to the heavens.
All of the emperors, through the last one, from the first Ming through the last Qing, viewed themselves and the people viewed them as the God's representative on earth. They were holy. So the Temple of Heaven was their spot to actually converse with the heavens.
From the main road in the Temple of Heaven, Danby Bridge connects the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests with the Imperial Vault of Heaven. But this temple is better known for the wall that surrounds it, the Echo Wall. The wall's properties allow a whisper to be spoken at one end and heard clearly at the other. Inside the Imperial Vault of Heaven, a decorated wooden round dome serves as a shrine representing heaven. This was where the divine tablets were kept, only to be removed to the altar of heaven for a ceremony to worship and offer a sacrifice to the gods.
One of my favorite temples in Beijing is the Yonghe Temple, which was, believe it or not, originally a palace for eunuchs. It was started in the late 17th century. And one of the great things about this temple complex, it was changed into a temple from a palace.
From a palace for the Ming Dynasty's third emperor, before his ascension to the throne, to a grand temple for all to enjoy, Yonghe Temple is the largest and best preserved in Beijing. In keeping with tradition and feng shui, every element of the temple is entirely symmetrical. And perhaps it is one of the most colorful structures when considering architectural diversity, because it combines many different styles of ethnic groups' monasteries, including the Han, the Manchu, the Mongolian, and Tibetan. And the crowds still come to worship today.
It's open later at night. So after the Temple of Heaven or the Forbidden City closes, being that it's a functioning temple and local people today come there, you see local people. You see people who live in Beijing, not just tourists. And that's what also makes it interesting.
Of the 5 halls to see at Yonghe Temple, the most popular is the Wanfu Ge, or the Pavilion of 10,000 Happinesses. Inside is the largest Buddha wood carving in the world. A 60-foot statue of the Maitreya Buddha is the temple's prized possession. Sculpted from a single block of sandalwood, each of the Buddha's toes is the size of a pillow. Under dense incense mixed with the aroma of sandalwood, each hall at Yonghe Temple features a different Buddha, one for the past, present, future, and healing. But every one boasts its own elaborate design and style, none more beautiful than the rest, all of them a must-see on your journey through China's magnificent imperial past. Coming up, tempt your taste buds with exotic cuisine fit for an emperor. For foodies visiting Beijing, you'll be pleased as punch to know that Beijing has poured enormous efforts into building one of the most important attractions on a journey through China's imperial past. At the Imperial Food Museum, where historians pay homage to the smells and tastes that delighted China's dynastic rulers, you'll experience the country's true culture through tantalizing cuisine crafted for emperors.
We, the Chinese, are very serious about our food. There is a popular saying in Chinese that means food is the highest priority for people. So having a meal is a very important part of Chinese people's daily lives.
Dim sum, kung pao chicken, and orange chicken are the most popular Chinese dishes known in America. But more exotic fare tempted the taste buds of emperors in ancient times. And today, those dishes can be experienced by everyone at Beijing's Imperial Food Museum. Influenced by China's 8 culinary cuisines, imperial cuisine is respected by Chinese people today and seen as a way to carry on the culture.
Imperial food has made a great impact over time. Therefore, we need to pass it on and protect it.
True Chinese cuisine is an endless variety, and imperial dishes from both the Ming and Qing dynasties are derived from all regions, ultimately influencing what is known as Beijing cuisine today and enjoyed by many in the city's restaurants.
For us, what are the relics? They are our dishes. There are endless stories in the museum and the imperial dishes.
It's said the philosophy behind Chinese cuisine was rooted in an ancient divination text, the I Ching, one of 9 books that form the traditional foundation of Confucianism. Therefore, a good meal is evaluated based on philosophies of the ancient tradition, like the 4 aspects: color, aroma, taste, and texture. And it's expected to balance the 4 natures: hot, warm, cool, and cold, with the 5 tastes: pungent, sweet, sour, bitter, and salty. Beijing's best-known culinary export may be Peking duck. However, because of the eclectic influence from all over China, there is an endless road awaiting travelers on the journey through China's culinary attractions.
Everything's nice, the city is nice, the food is good, the people are nice.
After satisfying your taste buds at the Imperial Food Museum, visitors will find a comfortable and luxurious place to rest at Aman Resort Beijing. Situated in close proximity to Beijing's most popular tourist sites, the Summer Palace, Forbidden City, Temple of Heaven, and the Great Wall, Aman Resorts offers visitors a home base from which to experience Beijing, complete with modern comforts that reflect China's imperial past.
For the first time visitors to Beijing, places like Temple of Heaven, Forbidden City, and Great Wall are more attractive because they are famous for being accredited World Heritage Sites. However, as one visits more often, they will discover the diverse culture Beijing has to offer, and many become more deeply interested in understanding the local life of Beijing people and the cultural history of Beijing in order to experience the complex Beijing lifestyle.
And if you visited Beijing's spectacular sights and tasted the unparalleled flavors of the city's cuisine, you're well on your way to experiencing the true Beijing, full of vibrancy, history, and a decorated culture, where people witness daily a connection to their imperial past, embrace the cultural influences of ancient times, and keep them alive in China's modern capital, Beijing.